My husband died, then his family tried to erase me. My husband had been dead for 6 days when his mother told me I was no longer family. She did it in my own kitchen. I was standing by the sink, wearing one of Andrew's old sweatshirts because it still smelled faintly like his soap. There were casserole dishes stacked on the counter from neighbors, sympathy cards on the table, and a funeral program with my husband's smiling face printed on the front. His mother, Patricia, sat across from me with her purse in her lap like she was waiting for a train. His older brother, Nolan, stood behind her. Neither of them had cried at the funeral. Patricia folded her hands and said, "We think it would be best if you moved out by the end of the month." I stared at her. At first, I thought she meant she needed space. Grief made people say strange things. Then Nolan slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of bank statements, property documents, and a letter from an attorney I had never met. The letter said Andrew's family was contesting my right to remain in the house, not because Andrew had left it to someone else. Because, according to them, I had never legally been his wife. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because my body didn't know what else to do. "We were married for 9 years, I said. Patricia looked at me with the same expression she had worn at our wedding. Polite disgust. "That ceremony may have meant something to you," she said, "but legally it appears there were problems." I looked at Nolan. "You were there," he shrugged. "A ceremony is not the same thing as a valid marriage." That was the moment grief turned cold. Andrew and I had met when I was 32 and he was 35. He was quiet, steady, and patient in a way that made me trust him before I meant to. His family never liked me. They were old money in the kind of small town where people remembered your grandparents' mistakes and treated your last name like a credit score. I was a divorced dental office manager with student loans, a used car, and no interest in pretending Patricia intimidated me. Andrew loved that about me. His mother did not. At our wedding, Patricia wore pale gray and told people it was close enough to white to be festive. Nolan made a toast about how Andrew had always had a habit of rescuing strays. Andrew squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Ignore them." "I chose you." For 9 years, he kept choosing me. Then he died from an aneurysm in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. One phone call, one drive to the hospital, one doctor saying there was nothing they could do. And suddenly, the life we had built became something other people thought they could divide. I read the attorney's letter 3 times after Patricia and Nolan left. The claim was simple. Andrew's family said our marriage license had never been properly filed. They said Andrew's assets should pass to his next of kin, and they said his next of kin was not me. It was Patricia. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Andrew and I had gotten married at the county courthouse before our church ceremony. I remembered signing the license. I remembered the clerk. I remembered Andrew laughing because his hand was shaking so badly his signature looked like a child's. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. The woman behind the counter searched our names. Then she searched again. Then she looked at me in a way I did not like. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't see a completed marriage certificate. There has to be one." "I see an application," she said, "but not a recorded certificate." My ears started ringing. "What does that mean?" "It means the marriage was applied for, but the final document was never filed with the county." I gripped the counter. "That can't be right." She lowered her voice. "It happens sometimes." But the way she said it made me feel like she knew this was not one of those times. I went home and tore through every drawer. Andrew had kept everything. Tax returns, insurance policies, car titles, receipts from appliances we no longer owned. I found our wedding photos, our church program, anniversary cards, even the hotel receipt from our honeymoon. But I could not find the certified copy of our marriage certificate. Then I found something else. A folder in Andrew's desk labeled house. Inside was the deed. When we bought the house 7 years earlier, Andrew had insisted we put both names on it. "We're building a life," he had said. "Not a guest room for you." But the deed in the folder had only his name. I sat on the floor and stared at it until the words blurred. That night, Patricia called. "I hope you understand we're trying to handle this cleanly," she said. Cleanly, Andrew would not have wanted a public fight. That made me stand up. "Do not tell me what my husband would have wanted." There was a pause. Then Patricia said, "You should be careful using that word." Husband, she meant husband. After she hung up, I searched through Andrew's email on his laptop. I knew his password because it was the name of our first dog and the year we adopted him. At first, I found nothing. Then I searched marriage certificate. One result appeared. It was an email from Andrew to himself, sent 4 months before he died. The subject line was "Ask Rachel about this." My stomach tightened. Rachel was our attorney, not Patricia's attorney. Ours. The email had one attachment, a scanned image of our marriage certificate. Filed, stamped, valid. I started crying so hard I had to put my head between my knees. Not because I was relieved. Because if Andrew had scanned it 4 months before he died, it meant he already suspected something was wrong. The next morning, I called Rachel's office. Her assistant went quiet when I gave my name. "I'm sorry," she said. "Rachel passed away last year." I closed my eyes. Of course she had. Was there anyone who took over her files? Her partner, Mr. Vaughn, has some of them. I met him 2 days later. He was in his 70s, with silver glasses and the kind of silence that made you want to tell the truth. I showed him the letter from Patricia's attorney. Then I showed him the scanned certificate. He looked at it for a long time. "This certificate is valid," he said. My shoulders dropped. "But," he added, "that does not explain why the county no longer has it." "No longer," he tapped the scan. "This recording stamp means it was filed. If the county search doesn't show it now, then the record was removed, altered, or misindexed. Can that happen by accident?" His face gave me the answer before his mouth did. "It can," he said, "but not often." He asked if Andrew had recently changed financial accounts. I told him I did not know. Andrew handled most of our investments because he liked numbers and I hated passwords. Mr. Vaughn asked one more question. "Did your husband have any life insurance?" "Yes," I said, "through work. And privately?" "I'm not sure." He leaned back. "Find out." That night, I searched Andrew's desk again. This time, I stopped looking for documents and started looking for absences. Empty folders, missing statements, files that should have been there but were not. The life insurance folder was gone. So was the folder for his retirement account. So was the folder labeled Family Trust. I had seen that folder before. Andrew had once joked that his grandfather's trust had more rules than the Bible. I found only one thing left behind. A sticky note stuck to the bottom of a drawer. Nolan called about beneficiary change. "Don't sign until I understand." My hands went cold. Nolan had called Andrew about changing a beneficiary. But whose? And why had Andrew written, "Don't sign"? The next morning, I went to Andrew's office. His company had already boxed his things. His assistant, Joanne, hugged me so tightly I almost broke. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "He adored you." I asked about his benefits. Joanne's face changed. "His brother came by yesterday." "Nolan," she nodded. "He said the family was handling everything. He had no right." "I thought it was strange," she said. "Andrew had you listed as emergency contact on everything." "Had?" Joanne looked toward the hallway, then lowered her voice. "About 3 months ago, Andrew asked HR for copies of his beneficiary forms. He seemed upset." "What happened?" "I don't know. But 2 weeks later, someone submitted updated forms." My throat tightened. "Changing the beneficiary from me?" She nodded. "To Patricia." For a second, I could not breathe. Then Joanne said, "But Andrew disputed it." I stared at her. "He told HR he had not signed those forms." "What did HR do?" "They froze the payout pending review." That was the first piece of hope I had felt since the funeral. Then Joanne handed me a copy of an email Andrew had sent HR. "The signature on the beneficiary change is not mine. Please preserve all submission records." I read the line again. Andrew knew. He knew before he died. The question was how much. Mr. Vaughn filed a formal challenge within a week. That was when Patricia stopped pretending to be polite. She called me crying first, then angry, then calm, which was worse. "You're embarrassing this family," she said. "No," I said. "I'm exposing it. You were never one of us." "I was Andrew's wife. You were Andrew's mistake." That one hurt. Not because I believed it, because I knew Andrew had heard some version of it his whole life. 2 days later, I got locked out of our joint checking account. The bank said Andrew had removed me 6 months earlier. I told them that was impossible. They showed me a form with his signature. It looked like Andrew's signature. Almost, Theo was wrong. Andrew made his capital like a triangle because he said regular A's looked unfinished. This one had a loop. I asked for a copy. The manager refused until Mr. Vaughn sent a letter. When we finally got it, we saw something stranger. The form had been submitted in person, at a branch Andrew and I never used, and the employee who processed it had the same last name as Patricia's sister. That was the midpoint. Until then, I thought Patricia was taking advantage of missing paperwork after Andrew died. I thought Nolan had helped her. I thought they were greedy and cruel, but this had started before Andrew died. They had not reacted to his death. They had prepared for it. Mr. Vaughn said we needed to be careful. That is a serious accusation. I'm not accusing them of killing him, I said. I know, but if they were moving assets before he died, they may have expected to need control quickly. Why? He studied me. That is the question. The answer came from Andrew's phone. I had avoided listening to his voicemails because grief has strange rules. It lets you handle legal documents but not the sound of someone breathing before they speak. On the 9th day after his funeral, I finally opened them. Most were ordinary. Dentist reminder. Pharmacy. Nolan asking Andrew to call back. Then one from Patricia. Her voice was tight. Andrew, this has gone far enough. You are punishing your brother for one mistake, and I will not allow you to destroy this family. Call me before you do something we all regret. I played it 3 times. One mistake. Destroy this family. I searched Andrew's emails for Nolan's name. Hundreds came up. Most were normal. Then I searched one mistake. One result. An email from Andrew to Nolan sent 5 months before he died. I know about the withdrawals. You have until Friday to put the money back or I go to the trustee. Withdrawals. Trustee. Family trust. I printed it with shaking hands. Then I found another. Nolan, I am not signing a release. Mom pressuring me will not change that. And another. You forged my name once. You will not do it again. I stopped reading and called Mr. Vaughn. By the end of that week, the real shape of the betrayal emerged. Nolan had borrowed against a family investment account he was not supposed to touch. Not once. Repeatedly. The account was connected to the trust Andrew helped oversee after his father died. Andrew had discovered the withdrawals. Patricia had begged him to keep quiet. Andrew refused. So they started making him disappear on paper. First, they tried to remove me from accounts so I would have no access after his death. Then they changed beneficiary forms. Then they altered property documents. And somehow, someone had made our marriage record vanish from the county system. All of it served one purpose. If Andrew died, I would have no standing, no access, no authority, no voice. Patricia could control the estate. Nolan could bury what he had done. I wanted to believe Andrew had planned to tell me. Then Mr. Vaughn gave me the last file Rachel had saved before she died. Inside was a draft petition Andrew had prepared but never filed. He had been planning to remove Nolan as co-trustee. He had been planning to report the forged signatures. And attached to the file was a handwritten note. If anything happens to me, contact my wife first. Do not allow my family to isolate her. My wife. I pressed that note to my chest and cried in Mr. Vaughn's office. Not soft tears, ugly ones, because Andrew had not doubted me. He had been trying to protect me. And I had been grieving alone while the people he feared stood in my kitchen and told me I was nobody. The case did not end quickly. Nothing real ever does. Patricia's attorney argued the marriage record issue was a clerical error. Then Mr. Vaughn produced the scanned certified certificate. The county launched an internal review. The missing record had not been misfiled, it had been manually altered. The employee who accessed it had retired 2 months before Andrew died. She was Patricia's cousin. The bank forms were reviewed next. The signature expert said Andrew had not signed them. HR reached the same conclusion about the beneficiary change. Then the trust records opened. Nolan had taken more than anyone expected, not enough to buy a yacht, not enough to make headlines, but enough to ruin people who trusted him. He had covered business losses, credit lines, private debts, and a lifestyle he could no longer afford. Patricia had known, that was the deepest truth. She had not done this because she loved Andrew less. She had done it because she loved the image of her family more than the truth of it. Andrew was the honest son. Nolan was the son who carried the family name, and I was the outsider who might inherit enough power to expose them. In the end, the court recognized my marriage. The house was mine. The insurance payout was restored to me. The forged documents triggered investigations Patricia could not control with sharp clothes and cold manners. Nolan was removed from the trust and later charged. Patricia was not charged for everything I believed she had done. That still bothers me, but she lost control of the estate. She lost the house she thought she could take. She lost the right to speak for Andrew. The last time I saw her was outside the courthouse. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not sorry, just defeated. "You took everything," she said. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "No, Patricia. I kept what was already mine." Then I walked away. I still live in the house Andrew and I bought together. For a long time, every room hurt. His coffee mug, his jacket, the dent in the couch where he used to sit. But slowly, the house stopped feeling like a crime scene and started feeling like proof. Proof that our marriage was real. Proof that love does not disappear because someone deletes a record. Proof that being erased is not the same as being gone. Andrew's family tried to make me a footnote in my own life. They tried to turn 9 years of marriage into a paperwork problem. They tried to bury the truth under signatures, folders, and polite lies. But they made one mistake. They underestimated the woman Andrew chose. And in the end, that choice was the one document they could never forge.